Thank you, Ambassador Kamon, and thank you, India's ambassador to Israel, and all of you, dear friends from India, our business delegation from Israel. כל הכבוד לכם, אתם עושים עבודה נהדרת, ותמשיכו. תודה רבה. My understanding of local dialects prevents me from translating that just now, but on my next visit I'll be able to do it perfectly. This has been an extraordinary journey, a friendship, personal friendship between Prime Minister Modi and myself, and a great blossoming friendship between the people of India and the people of Israel. It is not immediately obvious because our two civilizations, two ancient civilizations, had some contact points, specifically Jewish merchants who settled on the east coast of India, but it wasn't a meeting ground of the kind that we had with other civilizations. And yet we see it now flowering in ways that are moving, powerful, and immense. I see it not only on the level of government leadership and business associations. I saw it on the streets of your cities, the cheers for Israel, the heartfelt sympathy that you feel from the people, and you can see it in Israel itself. You can see the attitude towards India. There is, to quote the final scene of Casablanca, that movie, this is the beginning of a wonderful friendship. This is the beginning of a wonderful ancient friendship, and it is boundless in its possibilities. The future belongs to those who innovate. Israel is an innovation nation. India is an innovation nation. We must be innovation nations to seize the future. If we don't, we'll fall back. If we do, we'll define the future. We can do so better together. I want to tell you that, well, I'd like to give you a confession. There are 15 countries that make me lose sleep every night. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Iran, Syria, right? No, that's not who I'm referring to, at least not in this speech. You see, it's Switzerland that makes me lose sleep. Singapore makes me lose sleep. The United States makes me lose sleep. Why? Because they're among the 15 countries ranked higher than Israel in the World's Economic Forum's competitive index. And I'm very competitive about Israel's competitiveness. Now, these countries, mind you, we're very high on the innovation index. I think we're number 2, which is also amazing. How can Switzerland be beating Israel on the innovation index? What is it that they do there? You remember clocks? Chocolate? No, they do things. They do things. They wouldn't be that high if they didn't. We're checking it out right now. But I'm talking about the competitive index. And these countries who are ahead of us didn't do anything wrong. They did a lot of things right. So today I'm putting them on watch. Israel is on their tails. In the past 2 years, Israel jumped from number 27 in the world to number 15 on the competitive index. 2 years. And we're constantly cutting regulations and making it easier for businesses to compete, which means to innovate and to draw profit from their innovations. And that's why we continue to rise. I believe Israel can be in the top 10. My staff says we'll be number 1. I said, no, well, that's tougher than you think. But we want to be in the top 10 because competition is vital for success in business and in life. Without it, as I've just said, you decline. With it, you thrive. Israeli companies like Waze and Mobileye became giants because they beat the competition. Israeli entrepreneurs are always looking for a new and better way to create value. It's important to understand, in my economic policy, I know that the economic added value is given primarily by the private sector. And by the private sector, I mean firms. Economic policy should help firms create value through innovation and competitive advantage. This is, to sum up everything that we do, is to help firms compete. Because we, government officials, even political leaders, we're not that good in assisting that. We're very good in interfering with that. So we should interfere as little as possible, discourage as little as possible, encourage as much as possible competitiveness and innovation. We actually have done that in the military, and it's what we do in the private sector. We even try to do it in government services. India also knows the value of competition, and it knows the glory of competition. Here's a competition. How many people in this room remember who won the 1983 World Cup in cricket? Well, if you didn't make it to the match in London, I bet you were out in the street or honking your horn when the West Indies lost. I bet you were full of pride when Kapil Dev came home with the team to a hero's welcome. That's what competing and winning feels like. Winning doesn't have to be exclusive. India and Israel are both winning by our partnership, which is reaching unprecedented heights, and this is just the beginning. Here's an example. Here's an example how competition and innovation reaches down to the people, because ultimately that's the test. So we were in a center of excellence, which is one of the 20 centers that we've helped establish here to give Israeli know-how in agriculture to Indian farmers. And one by one, farmers rose and described how Israeli know-how and technology helped increase their incomes from farming 4 times, 5 times. That's what I'm talking about. That's winning, and winning together. And I was very proud. I was moved by the fact that we, a small country far away, could make such a big impact in a big country like India. I want every farmer in India to have this experience. I said to Prime Minister Modi, we'll increase the number of centers to 30, one in every state. But I would suggest to have 1,000 Indians, not farmers, 1,000 Indian agents for this knowledge spreading into untold numbers of farms and farmers in India to upgrade Indian farming productivity on a revolutionary jump. Yesterday I also visited iCreate. This is an impressive hub where brilliant young minds come to solve problems. I thought I was in Israel. I walked down that alley and you have these young Indian men and women producing unbelievable things. I was particularly impressed with a 14-year-old boy, you know. This was Slumdog Millionaire, you know. This kid, 14-year-old brilliant boy who produces a drone that goes up to the skies and identifies landmines. This is something that obviously can save a lot of tragedy and a lot of misery. But I said to Prime Minister Modi, take that boy, build an industry around him. Just give him the opportunity to be an entrepreneur or to team up with entrepreneurs and let them ply their genius. In this room, there are some of the most talented and successful CEOs from India and Israel, and you got here because you're great competitors. My message to you is never stop competing, because competition benefits us all. It's what allows the development of the most cutting-edge technology at the lowest price. And I also want to warn you, don't rest on your laurels. Competition never ends. It never ends. Now, I know that you think, well, you know, if you establish enough market share, you can rest. It'll be over. It's never over. Even the giants now in the information world that are capturing the world, if they think it's over, they're over. Because you'll have disruptive technology, you'll have something new coming in and taking even the giants down. You can never stop competing. So we have to organize our national economies in a way that makes it profitable, makes it possible, and makes it easy to compete and innovate. Very briefly, what we did in Israel is to change the way we run our national economy to enable the genius embedded in our people to burst forward. And I want to say a word about that. You may think that our genius is a result of our educational system. Possibly. I don't think it's that good, but our real educational system is in the Army. We bring in a good chunk of our population into the Army, we give them tests, and we then allow them to rush into these technological streams, so by the time they're out of the Army at the age of 21 or 22, they've acquired an enormous amount of experience, which they're knowledge workers in cutting-edge fields, especially IT, and then they can start their own businesses, right? Right? That's the story of Israel, right? Wrong. We had that technology for years and we couldn't get anywhere. Why couldn't we get anywhere? Because if you tried to do anything in Israel, you couldn't. You were overloaded by bureaucracy, by constraints, by union interference. And so all that talent went one place. Where did it go? It went to California, where it met Indians, who are also coming from similar situations. Okay? If you think, and I always say that in Silicon Valley you hear Hindu dialects, Hebrew, and a little English. That's about it. But here's what we did to change that. When I looked at the Israeli economic system, and I said, there is so much talent here. There is so much potential here. But we can't create the competitive environment to let it burst forward. And I received the stewardship of the Israeli economy in 2003 in a great collapse. We had an economic collapse. You remember the dot-com bubble that collapsed? You remember that? You don't? Everybody does, if you're old enough. And we had some terrorism, and the explanation for our collapse, decline in GDP per capita, tremendously high unemployment, a central bank, a major bank was about to fall and taking all our banking system with it. The major explanation for that was indeed the bursting of the NASDAQ bubble and the security situation. And I thought that they affected it, but I didn't really think that was our major problem. And in Israeli terms, it's not necessarily identical to what you have in India, but I want to tell you how we fashioned economic policy to spur competition. I went into about 2 weeks for about 20-hour days to put forward a plan to resuscitate the Israeli economy. And when I put it to the public, I decided, what is the image? What is the image that I can use to explain what our problem is and what the solution is? And I fell back on my first day in basic training in the Israeli paratroops. The commander put us on a line, just put us on a straight line. And he said, we're now going to take a race. You may be happy to know in India that it's called the elephant race, which means, he said to me, I was the first in line, he said, Netanyahu, take the guy on your right, put him on your shoulder, you're the elephant. The next guy, take the guy on your right, put him on your shoulder, and so on. And then he blew the whistle, and that was the race. We had to march forward. I had a guy, pretty big guy on my shoulders, and I could take a few steps. The next guy was the smallest guy, smallest member of the company, and he had the biggest man on his shoulders. He collapsed on the spot. The third guy was a big guy, and he had a small guy on his shoulders. and he took off like a rocket, took the race. And I said, in the global economy, national economies are pairs of a public sector sitting on the shoulders of a private sector. And in Israel's case, the public sector became too big, too fat. And the guy at the bottom was about to collapse. So what we have to do is basically, that became known as the fat man, thin man story. And every cab driver in Israel can still talk to you about the fat man, thin man story. So in our case, the thing that we had to do was put the fat man on a diet and give oxygen to the guy at the bottom who's pulling the race, the private sector. What is oxygen? Oxygen is lower taxes, simple taxes, easy taxes. I think Prime Minister Modi knows that very well because he's just simplified the tax code, and that's very important. All right, now, so we did that. It's very hard politically in Israel to do that because we had an immensely bloated public sector, and we did a lot of things to bring it down. We trimmed it down. We lowered our tax rates significantly. Now we have this athletic private sector carrying a fairly lighter load and ready to rush forward and take the race, right? Wrong. Because when he wants to move forward, he hits a ditch. And when he crosses the ditch, he hits a fence. And when he crosses the fence, he hits a wall. And when he crosses the wall, he'll hit barbed wire. These are called barriers to competition. It's called regulations. Mr. Minister, First Minister, you don't have regulations here, right? There's no excessive regulations. I want to thank you for your hospitality too, thank you. But it's true that our major challenge today, our major challenge in Israel is excessive regulations. And when we remove those regulations, when we remove this jungle of bureaucracy, we get instant growth, instant competitiveness. We allow those young geniuses, men and women in Israel, who want to form, instead of going to California, they can be in Tel Aviv and form their own startups and profit very quickly. This was our challenge, and we did it. We have now changed the face of the Israeli economy to a business-friendly economy. When I spoke to Prime Minister Modi, I saw that he was doing exactly that. He is up to the task. He understands what it means to have innovation. He understands the need to simplify the bureaucracy and make it possible for business leaders to operate at a much better environment. But here's the point that I think applies to both of us. We have to continue this process within our own countries, but we have to bring the talents of Indians and Israelis together. One of the things that we're trying to do is facilitate a simple thing, an efficient, direct flight route between Israel and India of the kind that we have between Israel and Silicon Valley, the kind we now have between Israel and China, at China's initiative. Because the ability to have these contacts is enormously important for you to build value and create innovation without our interference and with our support. This is what we're committed to. I want you to know that you will be received in Israel with unbelievable warmth, I would say with tremendous affection and love. There is a deep and abiding respect for India, for the people of India, for the culture of India. We're two of the oldest cultures on earth. We are democracies. We share our love for freedom and we share our love for humanity. We are truly your partners. This is a partnership made in heaven. Let us now consecrate it on earth. Come to Israel, invest in Israel, and Israel will come here as well. Thank you all. Much success to our great partnership. Thank you. Thank you.